Okay, so what I'm working on today, haven't really seen many videos on YouTube about this. I've seen them for the Mark IV Jettas, but there's not really any videos on the Mark V. I'm sure it's pretty much the same concept, but just to get you a better view before you get started on it, I am replacing the glow plug harness. As you can see, my old one is kind of busted up. This glow plug is not reading a connection at all, so it doesn't work. So I'm replacing this whole harness. They say to replace your wires pretty much all the way to your glow plug relay, and on the Mark V's it kind of follows this wire harness kind of around the starter up that tray, and then your glow plug relay is underneath your fuse box. You can kind of see it right there underneath your fuse box. So I'm going to take the battery out. First step I did, these cars, if you disconnect the battery, a lot of things get reset in the computer. So what I have set up here is kind of a, not a jumper cable, but from a couple battery chargers that I attach together. So positive to positive. I know the colors are mixed matched, but that's because I've got these two connectors together and it makes them backwards. And then negative to a ground, and I kind of put them to where they're out of the way, so whenever I pull the battery out and the battery tray out, I don't disconnect them and my computers get reset and it acts all funky afterwards. So I'm gonna get busy and I'll be back. Okay, so a little bit of an update. I just decided to make a completely separate harness rather than cutting the factory harness all open and risking cutting other wires that you don't need to and just messing around with that, because these 06 Jettas do have some wire harness issues, so I just didn't want to mess around with that too much. So what I did, I cut the old glow plug harness there off. You can kind of see the wires hanging out. Cut them off pretty flush, but they're not gonna hurt anything like that. And I made a completely separate harness with some new wire conduit, and I kind of zip tied it to the existing harness just loosely. You don't want it tight, you don't want it crunching on any other wires or anything. It's just got to hold it in place. And then right here is where I made my solder connections. Solder and heat shrink. Normally if there was positive and negative wires running through the same conduit, I would stagger my solder connections. That way the splices weren't rubbing on each other and possibly short out on each other. But since these are all the same polarity, I am not worried about that one bit. So I just made them all at the same point, as you can see, solder and heat shrink. And that is the glow plug relay. I had to separate the original harness there a little bit. You can see where I taped it back up. So that'll be fine. And I'm gonna get this finished up. Show you the finished product. Okay, I'm all finished except for putting the air box and intake back on. But finished product. Separate harness running all the way to the glow plug relay. All the wires are protected, nothing's getting pinched. Looks good. I hope this helps some of you guys out before you get started on this project.